In the brutal crucible of World War II, nations weaponized not just bullets, but also narratives.
For Imperial Japan, propaganda painted the Allied enemy, particularly Americans, as savage, unforgiving devils. A narrative so pervasive, it became an article of faith, driving soldiers to death before dishonor rather than surrender. Historical records, like the infamous Shinjuken Code, reinforced this ethos, ensuring that the prospect of American captivity was synonymous with torture, degradation, and certain death. But what happens when a carefully constructed edifice of wartime propaganda clashes head-on with an astonishing, almost unbelievable reality? What if the enemy you were taught to despise offered not brutality, but dignity, not subjugation, but opportunity, and in doing so, redefined the very meaning of freedom for those who experienced it firsthand? This is the extraordinary story of 32 Japanese women, captured in October 1944 during the fall of the Mariana Islands, whose journey to an American prisoner of war camp shattered every preconceived notion. Consider the immense psychological burden these women carried, conditioned to believe American captors would commit unspeakable atrocities, particularly against female combatants. Yet, upon their arrival in San Francisco, they encountered an entirely different America than the one depicted in their indoctrination. Far from the expected barbarity, they found a nation operating on principles strikingly divergent from their own. We'll explore how this fundamental clash of ideologies unfolded. From their initial disorienting observations of an undamaged American home front, a stark contrast to Japan's war-torn landscape, to the profound implications of encountering American women in positions of military authority, a concept utterly unthinkable in their own rigid society. Before we delve deeper into this truly unique chapter of history, if you find this exploration of human perception and wartime reality compelling, please take a moment to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps us bring more untold stories to light. Now, let's unpack how these Japanese people, trapped between indoctrination and an unforeseen reality, began to question everything they thought they knew, not just about their enemy, but about themselves and the very society they fought for. In October 1944, a transport ship from Saipan docked in San Francisco Bay, carrying 32 Japanese women captured during the fall of the Mariana Islands. Among them, Nurse Lieutenant Akiko Tanaka pressed her face against a small porthole, a complex mixture of apprehension and resignation gripping her as American soil drew nearer. "Akiko-san," whispered her companion. "Communications Officer Yukiko. What do you think they will do to us?" Akiko had no answer. Her mind was a maelstrom fueled by pervasive Japanese propaganda depicting American cruelty towards prisoners. The message had been unambiguous. Americans were savage devils, unforgiving of captured Japanese, especially women who had served the imperial forces. "Remember our training." Akiko quietly urged the women huddled around her. "Maintain our dignity. Do not give them the satisfaction of seeing us broken." The ship's engines shuddered to a halt, followed by heavy footsteps approaching their confinement area. American voices echoed in the metallic corridor, and Akiko braced herself for the absolute worst. The door unlatched, revealing 3 American soldiers, but their demeanor was surprisingly unexpected. "Ladies," the sergeant began, speaking in careful, heavily accented Japanese, "I am Sergeant Murphy. You are now in American custody and will be transported to a processing center. Please gather your personal belongings." This unexpected courtesy in his voice was profoundly disarming, a stark contrast to her anticipated shouts, violence, and immediate degradation. "You speak Japanese?" Yukiko asked, astonished. "A little. I studied it in college before the war." Sergeant Murphy's expression remained professional, yet devoid of harshness. "Please, follow me. Vehicles are waiting to take you." As they disembarked, the details Akiko observed stood in stark contrast to everything she had been told about American treatment of Japanese prisoners of war. The guards, though armed, appeared relaxed, their weapons held non-threateningly at their sides. Even more astonishingly, she noticed several American women in uniform assisting with the processing of the captives. "Female soldiers," she murmured to Yukiko. "Impossible." Americans would never permit women in military roles. Yet, the evidence was undeniable. American women, bearing the insignia of lieutenants and captains, were directing operations, clearly occupying positions of authority that Japanese society would never have afforded them. The bus ride through San Francisco offered another profound shock. The city bore no visible scars of war. Buildings stood intact. People moved freely, and shops operated as usual. After years of relentless bombing and severe shortages in Japan, witnessing an undamaged, thriving American city was almost inconceivable. "Look at the cars," Yukiko whispered, observing the plentiful vehicles. "So many. And the clothes. People are well-dressed and well-fed." "It's propaganda," insisted Corporal Kobayashi, a radar operator and one of the most thoroughly indoctrinated among them. "They are only showing us the affluent areas to break our spirits." However, as the bus traversed various neighborhoods, this prosperity seemed pervasive. Working-class districts displayed similar signs of abundance: well-stocked stores, decently dressed pedestrians, and modern infrastructure. "Akiko-san," Yukiko nervously whispered, "if Americans can live like this during wartime, how powerful must their capacity be to sustain a conflict?" This question struck Akiko with the force of a physical blow. Japan had endured years of rationing, bombings, and severe material shortages for this war. If America could maintain such a level of prosperity while simultaneously supporting military operations across two major theaters, what did that truly reveal about the immense scale of their industrial capability? The bus soon pulled through the gates of what appeared to be a military facility. Even this compound defied Japanese expectations. Clean buildings, well-maintained grounds, and American personnel who moved with a calm efficiency, rather than the desperate urgency Akiko had witnessed in Japanese military installations. "Whatever happens," Akiko told her fellow prisoners, "we face it together. We are Japanese women. We will not be broken." Yet, as they walked towards their unknown fate, a nagging feeling persisted in Akiko's mind. Perhaps everything they had been taught about their American enemy, like so much else in this war, was an illusion. The processing center at Stoneman Camp utterly subverted Akiko's every preconceived notion of how Americans would treat Japanese prisoners of war. As they entered the main building, she noticed American and Japanese staff working side by side at desks, with translators facilitating communication between captives and their captors. "I am Captain Patricia Williams," an American female officer announced in fluent Japanese. "I will be overseeing your identification and explaining the American prisoner of war protocols." A female officer who spoke flawless Japanese was startling enough, but Captain Williams' demeanor was professional and respectful, utterly devoid of hostility or triumphalism. "Each of you will undergo an individual interview to confirm your identity, medical needs, and any special circumstances of which we should be aware. Under the Geneva Convention, you are entitled to rights that we are obligated to respect." Rights. Akiko had expected immediate interrogation, perhaps torture, and certainly humiliation. Instead, she was being informed of international protections. When it was Akiko's turn for processing, she found herself seated across from Captain Williams and Technical Sergeant James Nakamura, a Japanese-American interpreter whose presence created a new layer of confusion. "You are Japanese, yet you serve in the American military?" Akiko asked, incredulous. Sergeant Nakamura offered a sad smile. "I am Nisa, Japanese-American. My parents immigrated from Japan 30 years ago. I was born in California. But you fight against Japan. I fight against militarism and aggression, not against the Japanese people. There is a distinction." As their conversation unfolded, Captain Williams reviewed Akiko's files. "Lieutenant Tanaka, you served as a medical officer in the Imperial Navy." "Yes. What was your specialty?" "Trauma surgery and field medicine." "Excellent. Our camp hospital is in need of medical personnel. Would you be willing to provide medical care to Japanese prisoners of war under American supervision?" The proposition stunned Akiko. "You would trust a Japanese prisoner to treat other prisoners?" "We would trust a qualified medical professional to provide care to those in need. Your nationality does not change your medical training or your oath to help the sick." As the processing continued, Akiko learned the specifics of American POW policy, which challenged all her previous assumptions. Japanese prisoners would receive the same medical care as American soldiers. They would be housed in clean, heated barracks. They would receive nutritious meals 3 times a day. They would have access to recreational activities, educational programs, and regular correspondence with their families in Japan. "This cannot be true," she whispered to Yukiko. During a break in processing, "They are describing treatment better than our own Japanese soldiers receive in our military. Perhaps it's psychological warfare." Yukiko speculated. "Treat us well at first, then leverage that goodwill for intelligence or cooperation." But Sergeant Nakamura, overhearing their exchange, offered a different explanation. "Madam, American POW policy is based on the belief that treating captives humanely reflects our values, not theirs. Regardless of how the enemy behaves, we uphold our standards." That afternoon, they were escorted to their assigned quarters, clean wooden barracks, equipped with individual beds, mattresses, and blankets. Each prisoner received a trunk for personal belongings and had access to communal washrooms with running hot water. "Hot water?" Kobayashi asked, incredulous, as she turned a tap and watched steam rise from the basin. "And clean towels in a prisoner of war camp," another captive added, touching the soft fabric in wonder. "When was the last time we had clean towels in Japan?" As evening descended, Akiko faced her first practical test of American POW policy. She was escorted to the camp hospital and met with the chief medical officer, Dr. Robert Harrison. "Lieutenant Tanaka, I understand you are a professionally trained surgeon. We have several Japanese prisoners of war in need of medical attention, and frankly, we are in great need of your expertise. You wish me to operate on prisoners? I wish you to help save lives. You took an oath as a medical professional. That oath does not expire because you are a prisoner of war." Dr. Harrison then gave her a tour of the hospital facility, which featured modern medical equipment, ample supplies, and a standard of cleanliness that met or exceeded anything she had seen in Japanese military hospitals. "Dr. Harrison," she cautiously inquired, "why do you provide such excellent medical care for enemy prisoners of war?" "Because they are human beings first, and enemies second. And because maintaining our humanity in war is precisely the difference between civilization and barbarity." That night, Akiko lay on her clean, warm bed, struggling to process all she had experienced. Instead of brutality, she had encountered respect. Instead of humiliation, she had been offered meaningful work, utilizing her professional skills. Instead of starvation, she had received nourishing meals. "Yukiko," she whispered to her friend on the adjacent bunk. "What if everything we were told about the Americans was wrong?" This question would gnaw at her as she began to perceive the profound disparity between American reality and Japanese propaganda. 2 weeks into her captivity, Akiko stood in the camp hospital, performing surgery on a Japanese prisoner of war who had been injured during his capture. Several American nurses assisted her, treating her as a respected colleague rather than an enemy captive. "Excellent suturing, Lieutenant. Captain Mary O'Brien," the head nurse observed, offering professional acknowledgement of Akiko's technique. "Your skill is remarkable. Where did you receive your training?" "Tokyo Imperial University Medical School," Akiko replied, still surprised by the parody with which American medical staff treated her. "Impressive. One of the finest medical schools in the world. We are fortunate to have your expertise." Dr. Harrison entered, interrupting their conversation with news that would further challenge Akiko's understanding of American society. "Lieutenant Tanaka, we are receiving Japanese prisoners from other facilities who require specialized surgical care. Would you be willing to expand your duties and treat patients throughout the entire Western POW system? You wish me to take on more responsibility." "We wish to save lives. Your surgical skills could help dozens of Japanese prisoners who might otherwise face permanent disability or death." After Dr. Harrison departed, Nurse O'Brien, with evident curiosity, continued to engage Akiko in conversation about Japanese medical practices and societal customs. What struck Akiko most was the genuine interest and respect conveyed in her questions. "Mary," Akiko ventured cautiously, "may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. In Japan, women are not permitted to hold positions of authority over men, especially in a military context. Yet here, You outrank male soldiers and give them orders without question. Mary chuckled. American women have been fighting for equality for decades. The war has accelerated that process. We have proven we can do any job as well as men. And American men accept this. Some do, some don't. But the results speak for themselves. Women, doctors, engineers, pilots, administrators. We have shown that competence matters more than gender. That afternoon brought Akiko another revelation. She was invited to attend a camp education program where Japanese prisoners of war were learning English, American history, and democratic principles from volunteer instructors. Democracy means government of the people. By the people, explained Professor Helen Davis, a retired teacher volunteering her time to educate the prisoners. Citizens choose their leaders through elections, and those leaders serve the people. But how can ordinary people make informed decisions about complex government policies? One Japanese prisoner asked. Through education, debate, and access to information. Democracy requires informed citizens, which is why education and freedom of speech are fundamental rights. Yukiko, who had been attending these classes regularly, found Akiko excitedly after the session. Akiko-san, they are teaching us about American society, not to change our beliefs, but to help us understand why Americans are fighting this war. They believe their system is worth defending, not imposing on others. What do you mean? Professor Davies explained that Americans do not wish to conquer Japan. They want to defeat Japanese militarism so that both nations can live in peace. They fight for the right of nations to choose their own government. That evening Akiko participated in something that would have been unthinkable in Japan, a discussion group where Japanese prisoners of war freely debated American political and social systems with their captors. No one was punished for criticism. No one was compelled to adopt American viewpoints, and disagreements were treated as healthy exchanges of ideas. Lieutenant Captain Williams inquired during one such discussion, "What aspects of American society do you find most difficult to comprehend?" "Your treatment of women as equals," Akiko replied honestly. "In Japan, a woman's existence is to serve men. First her father, then her husband. 10 heir sons. The idea that women can have independent careers and hold authority over men runs contrary to everything I was taught growing up." "And how do you view that contradiction now?" Akiko pondered for a moment before saying, I think I possess capabilities and intelligence that Japanese society never allowed me to fully utilize. Here, my medical skills are valued, not restricted because of my gender." Captain Williams nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps that suggests that societies can change and evolve, and traditional limitations are not necessarily permanent or correct." As weeks turned into months, Akiko found herself anticipating these discussions. Her surgical work, and her interactions with American staff who treated her as a valuable colleague. This respect and intellectual stimulation were something she had never experienced in the rigid hierarchy of Japanese society. "Yukiko," she confided one evening, "I'm beginning to understand something very disturbing." "What is it?" "That I, as an American prisoner of war, may have more freedom and opportunity than I would as a free woman in Japan." This realization would force her to confront fundamental questions about the society she had served and the enemy she had been taught to hate. 3 months into a captivity, Akiko faced one of the most profound challenges of her life when Captain Williams presented her with a proposition that would force her to choose between loyalty to Japan and loyalty to her own principles. "Lieutenant Tanaka, we are organizing a medical exchange program. Japanese prisoners of war with medical training will work alongside American doctors in military hospitals in California, treating wounded American and Japanese soldiers." "You wish Japanese prisoners to treat American soldiers?" "We wish qualified medical professionals to save lives, regardless of nationality. Medicine transcends politics, does it not?" The offer kept Akiko awake for nights, caught in a moral quandary. To aid American soldiers could be seen as treason against Japan, but to refuse to use her medical skills to save lives contradicted everything she believed about her profession. "What'll you do?" she asked Yukiko one evening. "I don't know, but Akiko-san, think of what we have learned here. The Americans have shown us more respect and dignity than our own military leaders ever did. This sentiment reflected a change Akiko observed in all the Japanese prisoners. Exposure to American society had broadened their perspectives, showing them options beyond the rigid hierarchy and limited opportunities of Japanese life. "Look at Kobayashi," Yukiko continued, referring to their fellow prisoner, who had been assigned work in camp administration. "She is learning bookkeeping, accounting, and business management. These are skills that could give her an economic independence never possible in Japan." "And you?" Akiko asked. "I am learning radio technology and electronics. The American instructors take my technical aptitude seriously, instead of dismissing it because I am a woman." After several days of intense introspection, Akiko accepted the medical exchange program. Her first assignment took her to Letterman General Hospital in San Francisco, where she worked alongside American doctors, treating casualties from the Pacific Theater. Dr. Tanaka, Colonel Patricia Hayes, the chief of surgery, said, "I want you to know that your reputation as a surgeon precedes you. We are honored to have someone of your caliber join our team." The respect in Colonel Hayes' voice was genuine, and Akiko found herself working 12-hour days, shoulder to shoulder with American medical staff who valued her contributions, irrespective of her prisoner of war status. "Colonel Hayes," she asked during a break between surgeries, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you trust me to operate on American soldiers? I am your enemy." Colonel Hayes paused her work. "Dr. Tanaka, when you are in an operating theater, trying to save someone's life, are you thinking about their nationality, or are you thinking about their medical needs?" "Their medical needs. Precisely. Medicine is about healing, not politics. The Hippocratic Oath makes no exceptions in wartime." Working in the American hospital exposed Akiko to various facets of American society that thoroughly shattered her remaining preconceptions. She observed racial integration within the medical team, women holding positions of authority within the hospital hierarchy, and a decision-making process that prioritized competence over social status. Dr. Tanaka asked Lieutenant Susan Chun, a Chinese-American anesthesiologist, "How do you find working in an American hospital?" "Liberating," Akiko answered honestly. "In Japan, no matter how skilled I was as a surgeon, my gender would limit my advancement. Here, I am judged on my professional ability. Have you considered staying in America after the war?" The question struck Akiko like a lightning bolt. Staying in America. She had never contemplated the possibility, but suddenly, it seemed not only plausible but profoundly appealing. That night, she returned to the camp, her mind racing. In Japan, she would return to a society that restricted women's opportunities, devalued their intellectual contributions, and primarily defined their worth through their relationships with men. In America, she had discovered a society that valued her medical skills, respected her opinions, and allowed her to envision a future of professional growth and personal fulfillment. "Yukiko," she said that night, "what if we don't have to go back to Japan when the war ends?" "What do you mean?" "What if we could choose to stay here, to build new lives in a society that values our contributions instead of limiting us because of who we are?" The conversation continued for weeks, both women grappling with a possibility they had never imagined. That captivity in America might offer more genuine freedom than being free in Japan. 6 months into their arrival, Akiko stood in the camp commander's office, confronting one of the most momentous decisions of her life. Colonel James Morrison had just announced news that would alter the destiny of all Japanese prisoners of war at Stoneman Camp. "Ladies and gentlemen, the War Department has approved a new program for qualified prisoners of war. Those with professional skills and clean records may apply for temporary residency, with the possibility of permanent immigration after the war." A profound silence enveloped the room as the 32 Japanese women absorbed the announcement. "You are offering us a chance to stay in America?" Yukiko asked, on behalf of the group. "We are offering qualified individuals the opportunity to contribute to American society while building new lives, free from the devastation and uncertainty they might face upon returning to Japan." Colonel Morrison's words hung in the air, a lifeline extended to a drowning soul. All understood that Japan was losing the war, and returning home meant facing a ravaged nation with an uncertain prospect of rebuilding. "What would we need to do?" Akiko asked. "Continue to contribute your professional skills to American society, abide by American laws, and demonstrate successful integration into a democratic system." Following the meeting, the Japanese women gathered in their barracks to discuss this unprecedented opportunity. The debate was fierce and emotional. "This is an act of betrayal against our homeland," insisted Kobayashi, who had remained the most resistant to American influence. "How can we abandon our country when it needs us most?" "Abandon what?" Yukiko retorted. "A society that never valued our contributions. A nation that used us as tools for a militaristic expansion. A system that denied us basic rights and opportunities." Akiko listened to the arguments, reflecting on her own experiences. In 6 months of captivity in America, she had engaged in more meaningful medical work, received more professional recognition, and experienced a greater freedom of thought than she had in years serving the Imperial Japanese Empire. She calmly announced, "I wish to stay." Her words instantly silenced the room. "Akiko-san, you cannot be serious." Kobayashi protested. "I am entirely serious. In America, I am valued as a surgeon, respected as an intelligent woman, and free to pursue my professional growth without the limitations of my gender. Why would I return to a society that treats women as property?" Her declaration opened a floodgate, and other women began to voice their own desires to remain in America. "The skills I have learned here, in Japan, would never be taught to women," Yukiko said. "Radio, technology, electronics, business administration, this knowledge can provide economic independence. And I found that my opinions matter." Another prisoner added, "Americans listen to what I think, not what my father or husband told me to think." In the ensuing days, individual interviews with immigration officials revealed the profound transformation these Japanese women had undergone through their American experience. "Dr. Tanaka," remarked Immigration Officer Margaret Foster, "your application shows remarkable professional development during your time here. Letters of recommendation from multiple American medical colleagues, advanced surgical training, and integration into hospital teams." "Why do you wish to remain in America?" "Because America has shown me what I can become when society does not limit me because of my gender. I wish to continue to grow as a surgeon and as a person." "And your feelings for Japan?" Akiko's voice caught slightly. "I will always love the Japanese people and culture, but I cannot support the militaristic system that brought such suffering to so many. America offers a possibility to both honor my heritage and build a better future." The interviews continued for several weeks, and 28 of the 32 Japanese women applied for residency status. Only 4 chose repatriation, primarily due to family obligations. Rather than ideological preference, "We are making history," Akiko observed, while awaiting the results of their applications. "Japanese women choosing to build new lives in America because we discovered possibilities we never knew existed." But Akiko wondered about the women still in Japan, trapped in a system that stifled their potential. Would they ever have the chance to discover what she had learned? That societies can change, that women can be seen as equals, that freedom means more than just the absence of physical bonds. As Sama arrived at Stoneman Camp, these Japanese prisoners faced a future they could never have imagined when they first arrived. As defeated enemies, they became pioneers, choosing to forge new lives in a nation that offered them dignity, opportunity, and the possibility of true equality. August 15th, 1945. The news of Emperor Hirohito's surrender crackled over the camp loudspeakers, and Akiko watched her fellow Japanese prisoners of war, their faces a mixture of relief, grief, and uncertainty. Yet, when Colonel Morrison called them for a final meeting, the response surprised even the American officials. "Ladies, the war is over. Repatriation to Japan is being arranged. Those who applied for residency status will receive their decisions this week." "Colonel Morrison," Akiko stood, her voice firm, yet infused with emotion. "We wish to make a formal request." "What request?" "Dr. Tanaka, we request permission to remain permanently in America. Not just those who applied for residency, but all who wish to stay." A clamor erupted in the room. 26 Japanese women speaking at once, their voices interwoven in a desperate plea. "Please, we want to stay," Yukiko cried out. In the English she had diligently studied and refined over months. "America has given us opportunities. Japan never could," another prisoner added. "We do not want to return to lives of limitation and subservience." Colonel Morrison raised a hand for silence, his expression betraying genuine astonishment. Ladies, I need to understand this clearly. You are saying you would prefer to remain in America rather than return to your homeland? Yes, 26 voices answered in unison. Kobayashi, tears streaming down her face, stood and addressed the group. 6 months ago, I called staying here a betrayal. But I have learned that betraying a system that oppresses us is not betrayal. It is liberation. Captain Williams, who had worked closely with them throughout their captivity, stepped forward. Colonel, these women have integrated exceptionally well into American society. They have contributed professionally, learned democratic principles, and demonstrated the values we hope to see in American citizens. In the days that followed, immigration officials conducted intensive interviews to process the unprecedented scale of requests for permanent residency from former enemy combatants. Dr. Tanaka, immigration officer, Foster asked during Akiko's final interview, "You are asking to renounce your country, your family, your entire cultural identity. Are you certain of this decision?" "Madame, I am not renouncing my cultural identity. I am choosing to live it freely. In Japan, to be a woman meant limitation, subservience, no voice. In America, I can be Japanese, a woman, a professional, and be respected. And your family in Japan?" Akiko's voice trembled slightly. "I love my family, but I cannot return to being property. Here, I am a person." The interviews revealed common themes: professional opportunities unavailable in Japan, respect for women's intelligence and capabilities, the freedom to make independent choices, and integration into a society that valued merit over social standing. When the results arrived, 24 of the 26 applicants were approved for permanent residency. The 2 rejections were based on incomplete documentation, not an unwillingness to accept Japanese immigrants. "We did it," Yukiko whispered, reviewing their approval letters. "We are Americans now." But Akiko knew their identity was far more complex. They were Japanese Americans who had chosen their American identity through experience, not birth. They were women who had found freedom through captivity. A year later, Dr. Akiko Tanaka stood in an operating room at San Francisco General Hospital, expertly performing a complex surgery while simultaneously training American medical students. Outside, the city bustled with post-war prosperity. She was no longer a prisoner of war. She was a permanent resident, building a new life in the nation that had shown her the true meaning of freedom. Dr. Tanaka, her colleague, Dr. Patricia Hayes, said, "The board has approved your citizenship application. Congratulations. You will be swearing in as an American citizen next month." American citizenship, the final step in her journey from enemy captive to respected surgeon and formal member of American society. Dr. Veninci joined her former prisoner of war companions at their monthly gathering, a tradition they maintained to support each other through the challenges of building new lives. "Can you believe it's been 18 months since we arrived here, thinking we faced brutality and death?" Yukiko asked. "No, an electronics engineer at a San Francisco tech company. And now we are American citizens, with careers our Japanese families could never have imagined," Kobayashi added, having become an accountant and business consultant. "Do you ever regret staying?" the younger woman inquired. Akiko considered the question thoughtfully. "I miss Japan, the food, the language, the cultural traditions I grew up with, but I do not miss being told I am less because of my gender. I do not miss my intelligence being dismissed or my ambition stifled." "What do you think happened to the women who returned to Japan?" Yukiko wondered. "One day, they returned to the limitations we escaped. Societal restrictions, economic dependence on men, and an irrelevant voice in important decisions." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Captain Williams, now Major Williams, arrived to deliver news that would complete their extraordinary journey. "Ladies, I have a message from the War Department. Your story has been documented as part of the official records of the POW program. You have become exemplars of successful integration, influencing American immigration policy." She handed them a letter from the Secretary of War, acknowledging their contributions to American society and their role in demonstrating that former enemies could become valuable citizens. "What's more," Major Williams continued, Several of you expressed interest in helping other Japanese immigrants adapt to American society. We are organizing a program where you will serve as cultural liaisons and integration specialists. The opportunity to help other Japanese women discover the same freedoms they had found filled them all with excitement. We can help them understand that they don't have to give up their Japanese identity to be American. Akiko realized they can be both. 6 months later, at her citizenship ceremony, Akiko placed her hand over her heart, reciting the Oath of Allegiance alongside immigrants from dozens of countries. After the ceremony, she was officially Dr. Akiko Tanaka, American citizen. How does it feel? A reporter, interviewing her for a newspaper article on former post-becoming citizens, asked, "It feels like coming home," she replied. "Not to a place, but to a society that values what I can contribute, rather than limiting me for who I am." As she exited the courthouse, Akiko reflected on the journey that had transformed her from a Japanese military doctor to an American citizen. She had discovered that freedom was not merely about political systems. It was about a society's recognition of the full humanity and potential of all its members. Behind her, 23 other former Japanese prisoners of war were taking their oaths, choosing to build their futures in the nation that had offered them dignity, respect, and the possibility of true equality. "Please, we want to stay," had been their desperate plea. And as the war concluded, America had responded by welcoming them home.